Please be seated. Well, warm greetings and love to all of you, those of you here in person at our Bonaventure Hotel gathering in Los Angeles, and of course, those of you from all over the world who are joining us through the online streaming. It's truly become a world convocation, hasn't it? And I think that I have it pretty easy following on the tales of Brother Chidananda. Because everyone's so happy, it absolutely doesn't matter what I say. I almost feel like having our closing prayer now. But I'll tell you, if you're ever troubled by what's going on in the world and what you think the future of the world could become, a simple remedy is all you have to do is stand where I'm now standing and see what I'm now seeing, all of you, and feel what I'm now feeling, the presence of all of Master's devotees here. And if you did, if you were standing here, you would know with the certainty of your soul that the future will be good and beautiful and filled with light. But we each have to continue to do our part to bring that future into manifestation, isn't it? And do know, each and every time you sit and meditate with that sincere intention to seek God, to love God, to please God, each time you act with the motive to please God, you are emitting a powerful spiritual vibration of peace, of spirituality, that does have a powerful influence on the world. So we all have our parts to play. Well, today is satsang, and that means we respond to questions that devotees have asked, and so we're going to get right into it. And the first question, what is the best way to pray to God for guidance? Can I ask him to show me how to solve specific problems? Or should my prayer be more general, such as, Lord, you show me the way to go? Well, in response to that question, I have a question. First, I'd like to ask you all, how many of you are parents? Please raise your hands. Okay, many. And there's probably thousands of parents joining us online. So here's the situation. If you have a child and he's really upset, and he comes to you and he needs help on a specific situation, problem. Say one of the kids at school is picking on him, bullying him. So you spend time with him, you help him work through that. And then another time he comes to you, and again he's upset, but there's no specific cause he can really identify. He just doesn't feel good. He's confused. And he wants to be with you, to connect with you. Now, the question, does it really matter to you if he has coming to you for a specific problem he needs solved, or if he's just coming to you because he's upset and needs to be with you? Does it really matter? Of course not. He's your child, and he needs you. And when that happens, something deeply innate in you responds, because you're hardwired to help your child. It's just part and parcel of who and what you are at the very core of your being, isn't it? You see, Our relationship with God is exactly the same thing. God is hardwired to help you because we are part of Him. God wants to help us. God wants to guide us. So yes, you can ask Him for help to navigate through a specific problem or situation that's troubling you. Yes, you can ask Him to just help in a general way. But the main thing, the key, when you go to God, you have to go as His child, as His own. You invoke His guidance, His blessings, His protection as His beloved child. There can't be distance. He's with you. He's your own. Our guru said, the secret of effective prayer is to change your status from beggar to child of God. When you appeal to Him from that consciousness, your prayer will have both power and wisdom. So that's one of the big keys to effective prayer. It's developing and bringing in that personal relationship with God. No formality, no distance, no inhibitions. With God, you open your heart and soul, anything goes. You can say anything to Him. Now, another key, we have to be receptive to God's guidance. What does that mean, to be receptive? It means we're able to receive and understand what God is trying to tell us. You can have a radio station and it's broadcasting, playing your favorite song, but if you're not tuned in to that radio station, you're not going to hear it, isn't it? Even though it's the song you most like. In the old days, they had the analog radios, and they had what they called a tuning knob. And as you turn the knob on these big radios, it would change the frequency of the radio receiver. And so you'd pick up the different stations as you matched their frequency until you got to the station you wanted that was playing what you wanted to hear. And so we have to make the effort each day to tune in to the song that God is playing just for you. And what is that song that God is playing just for you? It's God's will for your life as His unique child. So, attunement, tuning in with God's will. And this is where meditation daily is really important, because one of the big prerequisites for attunement, calmness. You have to become calm. Guruji, Paramahansa Yogananda, sometimes we refer to him as Guruji or our guru. Sometimes we call him master, which of course means one who's achieved complete mastery over himself. And so Guruji says, the more you meditate and keep your mind in tune with the divine consciousness, the stronger your intuition becomes. And intuition is that radio through which we receive God's broadcasts, God's will, God's guidance. Guruji goes on, in addition, persons who have controlled their emotions and who are calm within have much keener intuitional powers. Meditation brings us to that state of inner peace and stillness. And in that inner quietude, the intuition becomes active. Guruji says, intuition with its unerring guidance manifests through the receptivity of calmness. And that's why you should never make an important decision if you're agitated or upset. Stop. First, become calm. Because if you make a big decision when you're upset, chances are it's going to be a bad decision, something you later regret. But if we meditate daily and we try to carry with us through the day the peace of meditation, then we're able to use that radio of intuition to receive God's unique song, unique broadcast for what He wants us to do. Before I came into the ashram, for a brief time, I was teaching high school, and at this school, gangs were active. And so one day I was teaching my class, and in the hallway, there was a lot of noise, and I poked my head out because it was disruptive, and these two boys were horsing around, high school students. And so I told them to move on firmly, and one of them got really angry. And he stuck his face about 2 inches from mine, said some really nasty things, and he seemed to be on the verge of becoming violent. So it was kind of an explosive situation. So in the middle of all this, suddenly, I remembered the peace I had felt in that morning's meditation. And feeling that peace, I relaxed, I stood absolutely still, and I started smiling at him. He continued to yell at me for a moment or so. I continued to just sit, be very still, but I kept smiling, and I felt that peace. And then he visibly relaxed, and he walked away. So by remembering the peace I had felt in that morning's meditation, I was intuitively guided to do the perfect thing, to diffuse what could have been a violent situation. So, daily meditation and also controlling the emotions are very important to properly receive God's guidance for us. If you find something upsets you, try to remember when you felt the peace in meditation. Or use one of the Guru's affirmations. God is peace. I am His child. I am peace. God and I are one. Can be that quick. Can be that quick. In seeking guidance from God, it's also very valuable to bring in the help of the Guru. And years ago, Sri Dayamata, who, of course, she was the 3rd president of SRF and one of our wonderful examples for these teachings, she said something that has remained as a lifelong inspiration for me. I'll read her words. Whenever I am faced with a decision, I always turn my mind to Guruji and inwardly ask myself, if he were here now by your side, what would you do? What would he have you do? The moment I ask this question, I feel his guidance. This prompt response is the result of forming the habit of inwardly talking to Guruji with a sincere desire to put aside personal preferences and do what is best. Guru is the channel that links us with divine wisdom. When we think deeply about what he has taught us and learn to talk to him and ask his guidance, understanding unfolds within us. The very thought that we are always in his divine presence helps us to make the right decision, to say the right thing, to respond in the right way. And there's one point, she says, I want to emphasize tonight. When you seek guidance from God, when you seek guidance from God through Guru, you have to have a strong determination to push aside personal preferences to do what is best, to do what is truth, to do what will please God. Because if you don't consciously do that, these personal preferences or desires that come up can be such a strong force, they can blind us. They can lead us in the wrong direction. So to hear that, what I'm trying to say here is to hear that beautiful song of God's will for your life, you can't be marching to the drumbeat of your own personal strong desires. You have to consciously, earnestly cultivate that desire to do above all else what God wants. And of course, what we're talking about here, this is the spiritual quality of surrender, isn't it? Yes, you can pray for specific needs. Nothing wrong with that. But underlying that, there always has to be that theme, not my will. Thine be done, Lord. Thy will be done. Gyanamata was another great advanced disciple of our guru, Paramahansa Yogananda. And she wrote, many years ago, I read a volume of sermons by an English clergyman. He said that in all the rope used by the British Navy, a red thread was woven, adding that through all our prayers must run the red thread of surrender to the will of God. Above all our own wishes must stand the wish that God's will should prevail. What a vision of peace this opens up before the eyes of the soul. During the same period of my life, I was kneeling in prayer in the chapel. I was thinking of something that was coming in my life that filled me with apprehension. I knew that it was not the will of God that I should be saved from the experience. Even at that moment, it was moving toward me. Suddenly, God told me the prayer he would listen to, and I said quickly, change no circumstance of my life, change me. My prayer was answered instantly. I was changed. Trying to put this into words, all I could compare it to was a window being opened in an overheated room and a cool, refreshing breeze blowing in. It is not getting our own way that gives joy. It is attunement with the divine will. And that's a good one to remember when we're praying for guidance about anything. It is not getting our own way that gives joy. It's attunement with God's will. Gyanamata, in the last years of her life, it was quite difficult for her, much suffering. And at night, before she would drift off to sleep, her prayer was, now, Lord, send what I need. Send what I need. Okay, so the next question. Sometimes I feel drawn to the monastic life, but I'm not completely sure. How can I know God's will for my life? Whether he wants me to live as a householder yogi in the world, or whether he wants me to live as a renunciant in the ashram. I'm a single person in my 30s. So this is a question we get from time to time. I think some years back I answered something similar at Convocation. If you're single and you're not encumbered by worldly responsibilities and you fully embrace the path of Kriya Yoga, then monastic life is certainly an option that one can consider. So what does it mean to be a monk or nun of the SRF or YSS order? What does that mean? Here you determine, and more than that, you experience an inner calling that your romance. You know, we all need the romance. And by that, what I mean is we all need to love, and we all need to feel we're loved, isn't it? And so as a monk or nun, you experience an inner calling that your romance is with God alone. You're just absolutely convinced that all your needs are going to be met if you just give yourself totally to seeking God, meditating, serving, loving, pleasing God alone. You don't have to be perfect to come in the ashram. I can testify to that. We don't claim we're angels. We work hard, just like all of you, to follow the path, to overcome bad habits, to improve our character, to meditate just as deeply as we can. When you come in the ashram, the main thing is you're prepared to center your whole life around the Guru's teachings, to just give 1,000% in seeking God through this path and serving the Guru's work. Being a monk or a nun, you can have conflicting desires. We're not purified to the point where all those have fallen off yet, okay? But being a monk or a nun, what it means is your supreme desire is to give your life to God. And that desire is so strong and so compelling that any lesser desires that come up, you don't mind, and you're eager to sacrifice them on the altar of your love for God alone and your dedication to God alone. So God becomes your partner, your dearest, closest, best friend, your confidant, your intimate. God becomes your absolute everything. Some realize very quick they have a calling to the monastic life, and for me it happened quick. I hadn't been on the path maybe about 2 months, taken the lessons for a couple of months, and one day I'm meditating in my apartment, and suddenly in the middle of meditation, this strong thought comes, you are going to be a monk. And I was so startled by that, I jumped up and ran out of the room. And I remember I ran to a mirror and I looked at this strange creature and I told myself very sternly, you are going off the deep end here. Because at that point, I don't think I even knew what it meant to be a monk. But you know, in that instant, my life completely changed. All of a sudden, I was spoken for. Something changed with that thought, and it just grabbed a hold of my heart and mind. So for me, it happened really quick and kind of dramatic. But you know, we have others, beautiful monks and nuns in the ashram where it happened much more gradually, where they've been following the path for some years. Maybe they had nice, successful careers, but gradually this realization kind of percolated up in their hearts and minds. You know, this isn't what I want. The ashram, that's the life that's right for me. So if you're single and you're not quite sure what's the right path for you, but you feel some attraction to the monastic life, we would like to talk to you. You'll find the monks and nuns who handle these types of things very kind and caring and loving, and they'll be happy to answer your questions and work with you so that you can determine what's right for you, what path is right for you. Now, of course, most don't come in the ashram. And the spiritual path, if rightly followed in the world, brings wonderful results. In other words, you cannot say the monastic path is better than seeking God in the world, and you cannot say seeking God in the world is better than the monastic path. We're drawn to the path that karmically is right for us, that has the lessons we now need in our spiritual evolution. And so some have a really strong desire that can't be met in the ashram. For example, if you love music and you just have to spend lots and lots of time creating and playing music, you're not going to be able to do that in the ashram. So better for you to be in the world. Find joy in playing the music, but do it for God. And get your peace, get your balance by meditation, by practicing our Guru's teachings. Many have a strong need for a partner. And of course, we don't have partners in the ashram. So if you have a deep need for a relationship or a family, to have your children, then you need to follow the path in the world. And we have many thousands of devotees, single and married, in the world who have found great happiness following these teachings. And many of the devotees in the world, they find great happiness serving the Guru's work, too, and we need them. You find all the volunteers, the beautiful volunteers here at Convocation, and you find them at the temples and centers and meditation groups. They help with all the online programs. By keeping God first, by faithful meditation, by service to the Guru, by devotion, they've created beautiful, beautiful spiritual lives for themselves. So back to this question, how do you know what path is right for you? Well, you meditate, and in the stillness, after you've practiced the techniques, you offer your question to God. And you try to feel His response in your heart. Heart is the center of intuition. And also, you introspect, and you ask yourself, what are my deepest needs? What are my strongest, deepest desires? And be honest. If you have a deep, compelling need for a relationship, there's nothing wrong with that. But just don't become a monk or nun. You'll be frustrated. Or if you have a compelling passion for business or science or the arts, and you're just totally excited by that, then you have to be in the world. Follow your heart fearlessly. But get your joy, your balance, your inner peace by the Kriya Yoga meditation. But if you don't have any strong desires pulling you or keeping you in the world, then monastic life is a beautiful life to consider. For those who are called, it's a life of tremendous fulfillment and beauty and peace and love and romance, to spiritual romance. And so if you feel a pull in that direction, we want to talk to you. We, as a first step, we have these beautiful videos about the monastic life, the ashram, on the SRF website, and you might want to watch that and see how your heart responds. And then come by and talk to us if you feel that pull of the heart. It's not a life for everyone, but for those who are called, it's a beautiful, fulfilling path, filled with richness and meaning and beauty. So the next question. In the SRF lessons, Paramahansa Yogananda speaks of making today's meditation deeper than yesterday's, and every tomorrow's meditation deeper than today's. When I read this, I feel discouraged. Is it really possible to achieve this? So that's a good question, isn't it? Well, I understand when we come to the spiritual path, we're trying so hard to learn just the basics and to do what the Guru tells us we should do. And then you come across something like this, and it seems what he's asking is just way, way, way beyond you, isn't it? Well, there's something he wrote in his Bhagavad Gita commentary that will be helpful here. So these are Paramahansaji's words. Divine spokesmen always speak in absolutes, not to describe what is beyond the aspiring devotee, but as a measure for striving. Yes, our Guru, Paramahansa Yogananda, sets the bar quite high for us, but do keep in mind it's never, never, never to discourage. The intent is to encourage us to make a greater effort to seek God, a greater effort to bring out those hidden powers and abilities of the soul that He knows we have. My understanding is that He doesn't mean literally that every meditation is going to be deeper than the previous one. If you read the lives of the saints, even the saints find it hard at times to meditate, to, focus in meditation. But the thing about the saints, their attitude never wavers. They're always trying to improve, always trying to please God, always trying to deepen their meditation and prayer and communion with God. Paramahansaji tells of a story, an experience he had when he was young. He says, "Though I was born with a blessed perception of spirit, once in a while during my youth, my mind became very restless when I was engaged in the practice of yoga and meditation. During some of these periodic attacks, I would visualize myself as playing football, a game I very much enjoyed and at which I was adept. At first, it seemed that my habit of mentally playing football could not be erased. Nevertheless, I tried persistently to make my meditations longer and more intense, endeavoring to make each day's realization deeper than the spiritual perceptions of the previous day. In this way, I became accustomed to remaining continuously in soul joy." So from his own experience, we learn what he means by each day's meditation deeper than the previous days. As a young boy, there was times when meditation was really a challenge. He was sitting in meditation and his mind was thinking about playing football. But he didn't accept that. He didn't surrender to that. He persistently tried to make his meditations deeper and longer. And he said by that persistence, he got past that obstacle where he reached the point he was continuously in the joy of the soul. So what can we learn from this? The key here, you don't surrender to the struggles, and you never mentally accept the limitations that the world is always trying to throw on you. You're always trying to conquer. You probably heard the story of the young elephant, and they tie him to the little stake, and so he doesn't wander off. And then when the elephant gets a big, giant adult elephant, they use the same little stake and little rope. Now, an adult elephant could easily break that and walk away, but he never does, because in his mind, he's accepted he's bound by that little rope, that little stake. So the mind, you see, will tell you you have all the limitations on the spiritual path. But the Master, he tells you you are infinite, the all-powerful soul. So we have to listen to and believe and follow the Master. It's the attitude, you see. On the spiritual path, you're always trying to improve, always trying for excellence. If you don't, then it's easy to become mechanical in meditation and become absent-minded. And that doesn't help us. I want to get a little bit more into this because I think it's important to understand there's a certain law of habit that operates with meditation. Paramahansaji said, good habits are automatic psychological machines that enable you to perform specific actions without much effort of will. They help to make the performance of difficult actions easier. It is by regularity and continuity that you create good habits of meditation and other spiritual practices. We probably all had the experience where we learned to ride a bicycle. You don't remember, but at first it was pretty difficult because you're trying to steer and pedal and balance all at the same time. And so what happens in the beginning, we fall down lots of times. But each and every time you try to ride the bike, you're deepening the habit groove in your brain for riding a bicycle. And it becomes just a little easier until you get to the point it's automatic. You jump on your bike and you don't even think about it and you have all kinds of fun. Well, in the beginning, when we first learn to meditate, there's a lot to learn. How proper posture, all the different keys, they've been covered in the different classes, keeping the gaze fixed at the point between the eyebrows, the seat of the Christ Consciousness Center, how to practice all the different meditation techniques. So there's a lot to learn. But by repetition, the habit of meditation is formed so that each time we sit to meditate, we don't have to relearn all these things. It becomes easy. Becomes automatic. Now, here's the challenge. And this is important to understand. With the law of habit, what can happen as you get used to meditation, it becomes too automatic, becomes mechanical. You enjoy sitting there, feeling the peace, but you realize afterwards your mind wasn't really on the meditation. It was drifting. But if we're just sitting there with the meditation drifting, our progress is going to be more limited. Guruji really emphasizes you have to be focused. You have to be concentrated. So, what do we do? There was an American football coach. His name was Vince Lombardi, and he's considered one of the all-time best ever coaches in American sports. And when the Green Bay Packers hired him, they had a horrible season. They lost almost all their games. Worst season they ever had. Next year, his first year as coach, they had a winning season, and the year after that, they were champions. And year after year after year, they were champions. And the thing is, on paper, they weren't necessarily the most talented team. They didn't have the big superstars, but somehow he was able to take good players and make them play at levels of greatness. And he said something once. He said, I don't say that practice makes perfect. I don't believe that. What I say, perfect practice makes perfect. I think he's talking here about the same principle. When you practice meditation, when you practice anything, sports, music, anything, you can't be mechanical and you can't be half-hearted. You have to do it with 100% focus, 100% attention, 100% enthusiasm. When you meditate, 100% yearning for God. And so when you practice the meditation techniques, don't just practice them. Try to make it a perfect practice. Or, as our guru, Paramahansa Yogananda, would say, each day's meditation deeper than the previous days. So, do you see what he's getting at there? It's the attitude. You're always trying to do better, always trying to improve, always trying to deepen your communion with God. And if you don't succeed, if despite your best efforts, your meditation is not that great, and it's hard to control the mind despite your best intentions, well, you still have the satisfaction and the good karma and the attunement that you really tried to seek God sincerely. You made a strong, sincere effort. And with God, sincerity always carries the day. When the time is right, God will help you, and sooner or later, you do get the breakthrough. Paramahansa Yoganandaji said, "Let nothing break your determination. If you make a resolution and never cease trying to carry it out, you will succeed. Those who never surrender eventually attain victory." So the next question. I really like and enjoy practicing the scientific techniques of meditation that Paramahansaji gives. I find it harder to relate to devotional practices, such as chanting and practicing the presence of God. I guess I have more of a scientific mind. So how important is the practice of devotion? If you just focus on the meditation techniques, will that in time awaken necessary love for God? And the answer is no. Devotion is absolutely foundational to the spiritual path. You need both. We daily apply the science of Kriya Yoga, and that's very important. By practicing these sacred techniques our Guru brought from India to the West. But we also daily practice devotion, and that means when you meditate, you don't leave after the techniques. You always have that time of communion. You're sitting in the stillness. You're expressing love for God. And also through the day, we practice devotion, offering our actions to Him, invoking His guidance and blessings, and cultivating that feeling that you're in the divine presence. If you focus just on the science and the techniques without working on the personal relationship with God, then you become what our Guru called a spiritual robot. Here's what he said. I knew a devotee in India who for years so enjoyed the practice of yoga techniques that he forgot to love God. He was a spiritual robot, accomplished in the mechanics of yoga, but lacking its heart and spirit, which is God communion. Well, you say it's hard to relate to devotion, and I can understand. When I was young, my family wasn't particularly religious, but every now and then they decided they wanted to be religious, and so they'd kind of drag me to the local church, and it didn't impress me. I remember I had an aversion to that. For one thing, during the service, people would talk. And it was restless, and something just didn't seem right about that. And also, the ceremony was usually way over my head. I didn't understand. So at a young age, I decided I just didn't want anything to do with religion or God. In fact, later, I even decided I didn't believe in God. Well, some years after that, I decided I wanted to learn to meditate. And so I heard about the SRF lessons. And so I was filling out the application, and then it had this question that kind of stopped me. It said, do you believe in a supreme being? And so I confess I lied. I said yes. Because I was afraid if I told them the truth that they wouldn't send me the lessons. And I really wanted to learn, to meditate. Well, I'll tell you what changed it for me, one of the big things, when I read Sri Dayamata's book, Only Love. And she talks about her relationship with God in such a personal, intimate way. And as I read her words, they were just permeated with such love for God. It overwhelmed me. It just completely overwhelmed me. And I thought, this is what I want. This is what I've wanted all my life, and I just didn't know it. And also, when I would listen to the recordings of her talks, and also Mrinalini Ma, another great disciple of Paramahansa Yogananda, they just spoke with such purity, such love for God. It really softened and changed my heart, I'll tell you. So, you can't give up on devotion. We really need it to be successful on the spiritual path. Paramahansa Yoganandaji said, God cannot be known without devotion and love. Not a slavish devotion or one tinged by fear, but a devotion of equality and complete trust. For God is our Father, we are His children. Love makes us one with God. And another time, he said, unless you love God, He will never reveal Himself to you. Now, some may think, well, I'm making this great effort to practice the meditation techniques, to do all these things, and God surely knows that I'm doing this because I love Him. That may be true, but as our dear brother Bhaktananda, a wonderful monk of SRF, used to say, God likes to hear the words. Sooner or later, we learn that lesson. You need devotion. I remember when I was a young monk, went through a very difficult time, going through a lot of physical discomfort and pain, and it continued for quite a while. So I went to my spiritual counselor in the ashram, and he suggested different things. So I tried changing diet, getting more exercise, doing stretching exercises, different hatha yoga things. Nothing worked. And then I remember one day we were talking, and he said, well, I really don't have anything else I can suggest to you. But he said, but there's some words of the Guru that have always been helpful to me, and maybe they'll be helpful to you as well in this situation. And so the quote he gave me, this is from our Guru's book, Man's Eternal Quest, the chapter, Seek God Now. Our Guru said, there is a personal element in the search for God that is more important than mastery over the whole science of yoga. That personal element is love. And I can't tell you how important these words of the Master have been to me through the years. So it's wonderful to feel great enthusiasm for practicing the scientific techniques, as should we all. But we also have to work on devotion. Guruji said, Kriya Yoga plus devotion. It works like mathematics. It cannot fail. And if devotion doesn't come easy, because some find it harder, you start in the little ways. Gyanamata once wrote, how shall devotion be stimulated? What fuel shall we use to replenish the fire upon our altar? The Bhagavad Gita says that the Lord will not reject the smallest offering. A flower, a fruit will do. Ask your heart. It will guide you. Perform regularly. Whatever act makes devotion burn to heaven in a clear, bright flame. And so that's it. Just simple little things that arouse the heart, that bring that love out to the fore. And it can be so simple, like those of you who were here when Dayama was here, you will remember she often would tell us such simple things like, close your eyes and just say, I love you, God. I don't know anything else, but I love you. can be that simple. And if you don't feel that, be honest. Lord, right now I don't feel love for you. I feel dry, but I'll never accept that. Help me. And give a real oomph to your call to God. Once a devotee came to me and he said, brother, to be honest, I don't love God. I just want to love God. And I told him, no, you're wrong. To want to love God is to love God. There's no difference. And I told him, you just have to keep trying, expressing, cultivating that yearning regardless of if you feel dry or not. You keep doing that, the fire, it will light. You keep doing it. Couple of things I would recommend for cultivating devotion. There's a talk by Brother Bhaktananda. It's on YouTube. The Personal Approach to God. And there's also a talk by Sri Dayamata on YouTube, A Heart Aflame. So the Personal Approach to God, A Heart Aflame. Those two talks have wonderful suggestions for how to deepen your devotion, how to deepen your relationship with God. Our Guru said, God can be made to talk if your love is deep enough. Do your Kriya Yoga deeply and talk to him as I am talking to you. Love him more. He is invisible, but you have to make him talk. And if your meditation becomes chronic enough and your love becomes chronic enough, then he will be with you always. Okay, we have a little time. Should we have a little meditation? So, putting ourselves in the meditation posture, nice erect spine, shoulders, back, abdomen comfortably in, chin parallel with the ground. Lifting the gaze to the point between the eyebrows, the seat of the spiritual eye. And let's inhale, tensing the whole body. Double exhalation, relax. Again, inhale and tense. Exhale, relax. One more time, inhale and tense. Exhale, relax. Now just become centered at the spiritual eye. And listen to these words of our Guru, letting him guide us into a deeper state of meditation. He says, turn your attention away from the body and outer perceptions. Forget the body, forget the earth, forget the sky, forget the sun, the moon, the stars. Forget everything. Forget the bones, forget the flesh and thoughts and feelings, and forget all lesser perceptions that you may concentrate on. And feel only one goal of perception, the perception of vastness that lies within you. Feel that only the vastness of spirit exists. So let us put all our awareness, all our perception at the spiritual eye on that one singular perception of the great vastness within us. Guruji goes on, repeat to yourself, I am infinite, I am infinite, I am infinite. Go on mentally affirming that until you feel that you are everything beyond everything. So let's do that now, mentally chanting and affirming, I am infinite, I am infinite, I am infinite, and feeling the power and the truth of that affirmation. And then Guruji gives an affirmation to practice, so keeping your eyes closed, your attention at the spiritual eye, please repeat with me. I am beyond body, thought, and utterance. Beyond all matter and mind. I am spaceless. I am timeless. I am eternal, infinite blessedness. I am beyond body, thought, and utterance. Beyond all matter and mind. I am spaceless. I am timeless. I am eternal, infinite blessedness. I am beyond body, thought, and utterance. Beyond all matter and mind. I am spaceless. I am timeless. I am eternal, infinite blessedness. I am eternal, infinite blessedness. I am eternal, infinite blessedness. Now feel that you are that infinite sphere of light and joy that has no boundaries, that is infinite. Feel that light and joy which you are is expanding in all directions, no end. Ever new joy, boundless joy. Om. Shanti. Shanti. Amen. Well, that was nice. It's wonderful to be with you all, and thank you all for coming, and have a wonderful rest of the week of Convocation.